Did you know that Jesus actually repeated things? All right, come back.
Say that again.
Come back here. Be with me. Did you know that Jesus repeated things? Mm-hmm. Why? That sounds like speaking in tongues. Somebody give me an interpretation. Because you see, some things are so important that they have to be repeated so that we get them. They have to be repeated so that we get them. So I don't want you to bug out on me because I'm going to talk about something that I've talked about before. Novelty is great, but not everything in our faith is novelty. Some things are just really important. And even though I've read through the Bible all the way through several times, I'm still reading through the Bible every year all the way through. Or I'll read a portion of it all the way through. And every time I read it, guess what? Something new comes. Something new comes. The novelty is not reading it. The novelty is God's Spirit revealing it. But I want you to understand something today. So what are these? Well, it sounds like they've got several names. All right. Well, they're things that you put on your emails or your text messages, or maybe you have a sticker now. I don't know. But they're ways that you indicate your emotional condition. Okay. Back in the 70s and 80s, they had this thing called, remember what it was called? A mood ring.
Yeah.
Remember mood rings? Yeah. And what did they actually measure? They measured body heat, you know. So in the summer, you were ticked off all the time. In the winter, you were cool. So again, you know, these are little icons that we use to be able to actually demonstrate our emotional condition. And you might actually have one that works this minute, and you have another one that works the next minute. Because your emotions can change pretty quickly, can't they? Emotions is a big area for us in our faith. Big area for us in our faith. Let's just consider a few things first of all. First, emotions are built into all people in all cultures by God's design. God made emotion. Amen? And God actually designed us with these emotions. So emotions are not wrong. They're not bad. They're a part of God's actual nature, a part of God's actual design and creation of us. Second, emotions are physiological experiences. That means that you experience them in your body that involve measurable neural, muscular, respiratory, hormonal, and cardiovascular changes. I had to talk to somebody one time, and I was kind of anxious about talking to them. And when I actually sat down with them, I couldn't get my breath. Do you ever have that happen to you? That's just pure emotion. Pure emotion. So you know what I did? I said, please excuse me a minute. I need to just sit here for a second and catch my breath. Okay? And it is important to understand there are physiological indicators, experiences, and ramifications to your emotions. You experience it completely all throughout your body. Here's what I want you to understand. When God is running your emotions, your body has the best experience possible, given the fact that we are all deteriorating at some point in our life. Okay? But you have the best possible when your emotions actually are handled the way God actually intended them. Third, emotions provide some of our greatest pleasures in life, such as love and joy, delight, acceptance, compassion, belonging, and peace, just to name a few. Just to name a few. Those are wonderful things. Fourth, emotions are also tied to our greatest struggles and agonies, which often involve negative feelings such as sadness, embarrassment, anger, bitterness, jealousy, self-pity, and regret. These can be some of our worst moments. How can that be? Emotions here are the best that life has to offer. Over here, they are the worst experiences that you have. Fifth, emotions are not inherently sinful, Jesus felt a wide range of emotions, including love, compassion, joy, pity, anger, sorrow, and agony. Jesus had all these emotions. By the way, one of the things that the scriptures are really wonderful about is actually revealing Jesus exactly as he is. Mythological characters get revealed very different. The Bible actually shows the followers of God and how they actually handled their emotions, their emotional life, exactly as they are. Exactly as they are. Have you ever read an obituary? Have you ever read an obituary? Huh? What doesn't it say? Anything bad. Anything bad, as if that person all of a sudden became saints because they died. Dating, that's another moment where, all we show is one side. Later on, when you find out the other side. But I want you to understand, emotions are not inherently sinful. 6, emotions are often twisted by sin because of the fall. Do you know what the fall is? Let's make sure we're clear about this. Adam and Eve were made perfect and good, but they felt like they were missing out because they were given some different information. I had a friend like that once. Thought it'd be cool to set a fire by our garage. Didn't turn out so good. Or a friend that thought it'd be fun to go and actually paint a guy's car in a garage. That didn't turn out so good. Or to do some things in a 7-Eleven store that you're not supposed to do. That didn't turn out so good. I mean, there are a lot of these moments where somebody gives you an idea and you emotionally go into it even though you know what? It's not good. The fall is when Adam and Eve believed something other than God and felt like afraid that they were missing something. And so that knowledge would have kept them, but they didn't follow the knowledge. They followed their feeling. Notice, because of the fall, sin has corrupted our whole being, including our thoughts, emotions, and will. My mind is actually fallen. Your mind is actually fallen. Our brains are not perfect. We have problems. And it's important for you and I to understand that God actually has a purpose, that he actually accomplishes something in our life that without the gospel we cannot achieve. So for instance, the 7th thing is through the gospel, God has what? Redeemed. Redeemed. Do you know what I used to do? I used to run away from life. People ask me, said, you're Pastor Green Valley? Yes. How long have you been there? I say 20 years, and guess what they say? Wow, that's a long time. I told a gal one time that I was married for 25 years. She said, wow, same woman? How boring. I said, no, actually it's not. It's not as boring as you think. You understand? The reality here is that God redeems us. And our emotions are a part of what he redeems. He redeems our minds. He redeems our lives from the curse of sin, made us new creations, which impacts our thoughts, emotions, and will, and is now pouring his grace into us, giving us the ability to understand our emotions and progressively, notice that, progressively bring them under the lordship of Christ. When I became a new Christian, and really, in the early days of my Christian life, people controlled me. How did they control me? They would make me afraid. They would make me angry. You see, nobody can make you anything, can they? Hello? Nobody can make you feel anything. You feel what you want to feel. You go, now you can have a feeling, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's what you need to do. Believe you me, I've wanted to run away from life many times in my life. But God redeemed me. And I think probably, in the series of generations in my family, I've figured out that's a lot of what the men in my family have actually done, is that they've run away. What's the difference? Well, I don't just go by how I feel. Okay? Who wants to quit work on Wednesday? Progressively bring them under the lordship of Christ. Now, I want you to look at these passages with me, and I want you to see how emotions are revealed and how they're appropriate, how they're guided, and so on. Here we have in Exodus, we have a moment with Moses. And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, okay, what's happening here? God took the children of Israel out of slavery. Okay? You got that? Out of slavery. And brought them into the wilderness and was leading them to the promised land. Okay? But what happened? Okay, now these people walked on dry ground known as the seabed. And now what are they doing? They're going back to the way they were instead of the way God is leading them. Because, why? Because they're impatient. They're scared. They might even be mad. They escaped slavery, walked on dry ground, saw the wonders of God like no people, and what are they doing? They are giving it all up because they feel like what they used to do. Have you ever heard of a pig going back to his wallow? Have you ever heard about a dog? I won't say it, but anyway, again, this is something that's really a mystery. Now, here comes Moses. Moses' anger burned hot. Why is he mad? When your child lays on the floor at the grocery store and throws a fit because it can't have a piece of candy, do you ever get upset? Huh? You ever wish you could walk away? Pretend like it's somebody else's child? Okay, what do you feel at that moment? You're like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this. Yeah, you feel anger. Yeah. Now, we're not supposed to deal with people necessarily anger, but there is actually a righteous anger. There is a righteous anger. People are getting frustrated here in St. Joe because what's happening here in St. Joe? Crime. It is swinging way up. We're on a record scale of theft in St. Joe. Why is that? Because people don't believe any longer that stealing is wrong. So they feel like taking something and getting it and doing whatever they want with it. And so they're taking stuff. I want you to understand, this really does matter. Now, here's Moses, and this community will not actually ever turn the tide of crime until we get tired, we get frustrated, we realize this is not going to work. Everyone is doing whatever they feel like today. Have you noticed that? Okay? Today I feel like a woman, so I'm a woman, right? Hello? That's exactly what's going on. Today I feel like you should pay for me. So give me all your money. Today I feel like. And that's what we're doing. We've absolutized our emotions, actually. But I want you to see this. Moses' anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hand and broke them at the foot of the mountain. That was appropriate, but he was actually dealing with the fact that his followers turned away from God because they were afraid. They didn't believe. In Mark chapter 1, verses 40 through 41, and a leper came to him, imploring him, and kneeling said to him, "If you will, you can make me clean." Moved with what? Pity. This is appropriate. This is appropriate. Jesus has an emotion of pity for the condition of another person. And what does he do? He stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, "I will. Be healed. Be clean." He healed him because of the pity, because of the compassion. Notice in Genesis 37:11, and his brothers were jealous of him. Jealousy is often a big part of how people end up getting murdered. All right, what happened to Joseph? They wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him. They felt like, what? They felt like killing him. I've heard people say, I don't believe in divorce, but I do believe in murder. Okay? They're actually the same thing. But anyway, the bottom line is that it's important to understand they were jealous. Okay? Did you know that jealousy is one of the big issues that we all deal with? Envy comes from the wisdom from below, unspiritual, earthly, of the devil. Okay? These brothers were jealous. His father kept the saying in mind. And actually, eventually, the truth was actually revealed, and they did all bow down. But in Matthew 27, verses 3 through 5, and when Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he changed his mind. You see this? What did Judas do? He gave up Jesus, sold him for what? 30 pieces of silver. Have you ever had anybody sell you out? Huh? Of course you have. You've had people sell you out. They do it all the time. He changed his mind, brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. See, Judas didn't have even a clue of what Jesus was saying or what Jesus was doing. What was Judas driven by? How he felt. How he felt. He saw dead people walk. He saw blind people see. He saw miraculous food be produced out of nowhere. He saw literally all that Jesus did. And what did he do? Sold it for what? 30 pieces of silver. But then when it actually came down to the fact, and he tried to undo what he had done, they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." And throwing down the pieces of silver into the temple, he departed, and he went and what? Hanged himself. Why? Because he felt bad. Because he felt bad. Now, God foretold that all before it ever happened. But I want you to also see in Mark 3:5, and he looked around at them with anger, grieved at their hardness of heart, and said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. Jesus actually got angry. Who did he get angry at most of all? Pharisees. Why? Why did he get mad at the Pharisees so much? Because they were fakes. They were fakes. They said one thing, finish it, and did another. See, where you go with your emotional life reveals what you really believe. It reveals it every time. Every single time. In John 11:5, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. He loved them. He genuinely loved them. Matthew 14:14, when he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had what? Compassion on them and healed their sick. In Hebrews 12:2, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the what? Joy. Think about Jesus' life. How much joy did he really get? As in, how much fun did he really have? How understood was he? How accepted was he? How was he treated? You see, he had a joy that was beyond how people treat him. His joy was what? To do the will of the Father. That was set before him. He endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. In Mark 14:34, it says, and he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch." Jesus was not excited about hurting and facing all that he had to face, but he did it anyway. He did it anyway. In Luke 22:44, and being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. In John chapter 8, verse 29, and he who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do the things that are pleasing to him. Jesus was never alone. He never felt alone. Why? Because he knew the Father. He knew the Father. You are never alone. I'm telling you, folks, some of the worst decisions people make is because they're afraid of being alone. They're afraid of being alone. Instead of knowing that God is always there. Going on, it says, in Ezekiel, I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleanness, and from all your idols I will cleanse you. And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and be careful to obey my rules. You'll feel like following me. I will give you a new heart, a new mind. Do you get this? And your emotions will follow what you believe. Who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness, to purify for himself a people for his own possession who are what? Zealous. Zealous for good works. I want to remind us today of what we're supposed to be about. Does God exist? Are you engaging him? Are you following him? Because if you're not following him, stop saying you believe that he exists. Do you understand me? If you don't follow him, you don't really believe that he exists. You're aware of God, but it doesn't mean anything until you engage God. I remember one time I stood right over here where the platform used to be. And this is back when casino gambling was coming around. And I told our church, I said, look, folks, gambling is not good. Don't be a part of it. Don't get in on it. Just leave it alone. And I stepped down for the greeting, and a lady stepped up to me and she goes, hey, I just want you to know, I feel like I have a great time when I gamble. I said, okay, well, you didn't hear what I said, did you? Okay. It's not about your feeling, is it? I feel good when I win and you lose. Be honest. Be honest. That's what's destroying this country. We go for the feeling and not for the fact. We go for what pleases us instead of what is true and right. I feel like cheating on my wife. Sound like a good idea? No, but that's my feeling. I feel like. You feel like. I don't feel like getting up in the morning. Hello? Do I have any friends here? I don't feel like going to work. Right? I want you to understand something. If you love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, your life and your feelings will follow it. Truth is, I love my wife. So you know what? I'm not interested in anything else. I'm devoted to her forever. I got a good track record so far. Okay? But that doesn't necessarily take care of tomorrow, does it? No. I got to choose every day. And you got to choose every day. My integrity is important. Why? Because I love God. If you love God, you will engage your values of God. You will not be fickle or fearful. You'll be faithful. You'll be faithful. I'm going to tell you, as soon as you walk out of this sanctuary, you probably will feel like doing something else. Some of you probably feel like getting out of here right now. Huh? What time is it? Well, he gets 20 minutes and then it's over. What I want you to understand is this. You are not dictated by your feelings. Feelings are a great part of life, but it's not what directs you. What you believe is what directs you. And it informs your feelings. But also understand this. You got to take a look at yourself and see what you're really doing. And then, if you're serious, you have to engage yourself. Don't indulge your feelings. What? It's up there. It's open book test right up there. Don't indulge your feelings. What? You guys can't read that? I don't have a pointer anymore, but anyway, it's right there. Discipline your feelings. Okay, what's boot camp? Who's been to actually boot camp? Raise your hand. All right. What's boot camp?
Attitude adjustment.
Attitude adjustment. You ever try to tell a drill sergeant, I don't feel like doing that, sir? Yeah. You see, that is discipline, okay, for a particular part of our society to help protect our society, to make our society safe. But you see, it's not by your feelings. It's not by your feelings. It's by the guidance and direction, and you are booted in to that understanding and that lifestyle. I want you to understand, we're called disciples of Jesus Christ. We are followers of Jesus Christ. We're guided by the truth of his life, and our feelings are to follow. Don't live your life by how you feel. Do you feel like forgiving people? Do you feel like forgiving people? Do you feel like forgiving people? Now, some of you answered what you do, but none of us actually ever feel like what? Forgiving. Okay? I feel like people saying they're sorry, right? Because that's on them. But I don't like admitting I'm wrong. That's no fun. I don't feel good when I have to do that. Amen? And so I want to encourage us to understand, if I love God, I will engage God. If I look at myself, I will engage myself. If I look at others, I will engage others. I will do what I am called to do, what I'm led to do, not what I feel like doing. Amen? Amen. Let's stand together. As we sing, just think about your life. How much of your life is actually guided by the truth? What do you feel? What are you feeling now? What do you really live by? What do you really love? The bottom line is, your emotions will reveal it all. Your emotions will reveal it all. Did you know that Peter was in jail and he was singing praises to God? Huh? Did you know John was actually at Patmos, an island, and he was actually exiled and he was praising God? Do you know that people who know God and love God, no matter what happens to them, they are happy? Do you know persecuted people in this world today are following Jesus Christ completely, and they're not sad, they're happy, even though they suffer, even though they have a hard time. I want to encourage you today, think about what really goes on in your emotional life and what does it reveal about what you really believe. As we sing this song, you decide.